Hello everyone, this is Cynics, and today we're going to be drawing some trucks. So this is going to be a bit of a perspective tutorial along with a few other things. But for starters, I'm just going to do my little warm-up exercises because they're going to become very important in doing something mechanical and in perspective. We want to be able to get nice clean lines and ellipses. So you can definitely go watch the video where I talk all about these warm-up exercises. I was just doing a couple of them real quick because I haven't been doing a lot of them lately, and it's definitely going to show when I try to do my little perspective lines and ellipses. But anyway, here is our quick little perspective grid. I made a horizon line. I did two vanishing points. This is going to be a 2-point perspective. So you can see V1 and V2 on my gray horizon line, and I'm just going to be using different colors to make it really obvious which lines are being used as guidelines for which perspective. So I got blue lines that are going to be going to vanishing point number 1. I got green lines that are going to be going to vanishing point number 2. And then I'm going to be using red lines to have my kind of vertical lines, which, if this was, a more complicated perspective, would be going to vanishing point 3. But these are just going to be simple 2-point perspectives, so those are just going to be horizontal lines, and those will give me a better sense of my spatial awareness. So I'm going to be quickly making a box-like object in my three-dimensional space here, and I want to do that just to kind of establish where my truck object is going to be. Obviously, if you put it above the horizon line, my little red box, then you would be looking up at the object. And if you put it below, the farther below the horizon line, the more downward your view of the object is going to be. Since this is a truck, and trucks normally rest on the ground, I'm going to be making sure that I'm looking down at it just a little bit, so it's going to be below the horizon line. And this is kind of a very neutral look on things. You can see the middle of the object is kind of going right through the horizon line. But yeah, if you wanted to be looking up at something, such as like a spaceship or something that, you might want to get a nice underside look at, then you'd be drawing the whole thing above the horizon line. But anyway, you can see here, I'm having a lot of trouble hitting certain lines. And obviously, if I had been doing my exercises on a more regular basis, that wouldn't be the case, and this whole process would be a lot smoother. And I know you're probably thinking, why don't you just use the line tool to kind of quickly just connect 2 points together? But I personally, I love I don't know, there's just something about hand-drawn lines that you can't quite capture when you're using like a line tool. And also just improving your muscle control, taking these kind of opportunities as they come to improve your muscle control and do a lot of undoing and repeating of lines. It's just going to make you feel more confident when you're actually drawing stuff. And even just drawing organic stuff, drawing curves, drawing anything, drawing people and faces. If your muscle control is good and you can hit lines, then you're just gonna have better looking results no matter what you do. So I strongly recommend you practice that stuff a lot. You can see like those certain ellipses in certain angles of lines are just going to be very difficult. While you're drawing with your whole arm, which I want to make sure you're doing, be sure to draw with your whole arm. Doing lines across your body in certain directions can just be very unnatural still, such as, say for me, going from left to right, like in a very, I don't know, horizontal way where I'm coming down into my body is a lot harder than, say, going left to right and away from your body. So that stuff's just difficult, and you got to practice it if you want to have decent results. But I haven't been talking enough about my truck here. You can see how I just kind of calculated where the wheels would be on like different sides by using my guidelines there. You can see the green one, and I was getting like, I don't know, slightly annoyed with how slow the process was. So you can see that in some of my tech stuff. But yeah, that was kind of the slow process, and you can see all those guidelines, and you can really just have hundreds of, thousands of guidelines going in if you want to render out every little detail perfectly in space. But it's helpful to just have some spatial awareness so you can just kind of eyeball it. And that's actually what I normally do when I do these types of objects like trucks and things. I just fake it. I don't go through and actually do lines. But if you have a good kind of spatial awareness in your brain, you can kind of improve on that stuff, just without having to do guidelines and just kind of look at it and fake it and have it look decent. And that's normally what I do. But we're going to explore some other options. So you can see here, I've opened up a program called Google SketchUp. Actually, I don't think that's correct anymore. I believe a different company bought SketchUp from Google, so it might have a different name, but we'll just call it SketchUp. So I've opened SketchUp, and it is a free program, which is amazing because it is an extremely, I don't know, useful artist tool to have. It's just the things you can do with it are kind of amazing. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words because it's such an amazing program. But when I started out drawing and when I first started getting serious about concept art, I actually tried to learn 3D modeling. SketchUp was not a thing that existed at the time. So I tried to learn Maya, just diving in head first, and that was, I don't know, painful to say the least. It's intimidating. It takes a very long time to render something, and it doesn't really suit my sloppy, quick style that I do stuff with. So it was certainly an interesting process. I think I dedicated like 2 weeks just to doing stuff in Maya nonstop. I'd wake up, I'd spend like 11 hours a day rendering something. I think I made a total of like one or two objects. The main thing I made was like this gun, which was, it was nicely rendered. It had some moving points and all that fancy stuff that I was just learning from tutorials. But it was basically nothing to do with drawing and sketching and making art in the sense that I was used to it. It was just entering numerical values, and it was more like computer programming than art, in my opinion. Although I don't want to offend people that do that stuff because it's definitely amazing, and you can do some wonderful things in those complicated 3D programs. But it's not for everyone. It's for people that enjoy that kind of slower process and that can spend a lot of time, rendering stuff and entering numbers and doing that very kind of deliberate and calculated approach to things. But meanwhile, this program called SketchUp came out, and you can see it's basically, I don't know, it gives you the freedom to basically just draw things and then turn them into 3D objects without having to worry about all that calculated triangles where your polygons are going, and you could just kind of really do quick rough stuff and actually supplement your digital painting and your idea process in ways that were just never feasible before. So I'm going to be making like a base for a truck design I have like in mind. It's basically just going to be like a cab in the front with some wheels and maybe a truck bed. And it's just going to be very simple, and I'm going to use it as a base to then be able to go back in and create designs. So that's what I'm doing here in SketchUp. I'm sorry I haven't talked much about what I'm actually doing. But you can see I made two wheels really quickly. I was using the parallel projection camera angle, and that just makes everything flat so there's no perspective on anything. And then I just made my circles. I drew a cab, and it's all on a flat kind of paper-like surface. And this is where SketchUp becomes, this amazing magical program, because all you do is you take your drawings, you take your 2D surfaces, and you pull them or push them into 3D space. And it's very like intuitive. You can see there I kind of made the wheels both the same width just by kind of mousing over the first wheel I did when I was pulling out the second one. And it's just so incredibly easy to do that, doing this in Maya probably would have taken me like, I don't know, hours and hours to just do like a truck base. It probably would have taken me like a whole day. Obviously, I'm not, skilled or was never skilled in it, but I'm not skilled in SketchUp either. I rarely use this, and you can probably cringe if you actually know how to use SketchUp on how kind of stupid I am with it, because I don't know, there's probably a lot of good tricks and stuff that I don't know. But you can see here, I guess a little sidetrack. You can see here just how it kind of also gives you different perspectives on things. So you can see I'm messing around with looking at things in parallel projection mode and then in actual perspective mode. And you can just see how it kind of plays tricks on your eyes. Because in parallel projection mode, it's just kind of showing things, everything's the same size, there's no perspective thrown in. So you can see how like objects in the front actually looked smaller even though they were the same size. So you can just kind of, it lets you explore your mental facilities and just kind of look at those optical illusions like that, and it gives you a better understanding of how things should look in three-dimensional space. But yeah, that's, you know, you can go in there, make a simple object, play around with cameras and stuff, and just kind of, it'll give you better spatial awareness, I think. But you can see now I'm making my little axles really quickly. I'm not even sure if they're in the center, but they look like they're in the center. And a lot of times SketchUp will just snap things if it thinks you're trying to do something. It's very intuitive, and we'll just say, I think you're trying to make this in the center, so we're just going to snap this to the center. And it's usually right. So this is my little truck base that I made. Very simple. It only took me like, I don't know, 10 minutes. Obviously, I was kind of being slow about it and trying to show things off. But you know, it's just a very quick process. You can probably do these kind of simple, kind of structural, just like reference stuff in a matter of minutes, and that just is amazing. What it can do for like the production pipeline type stuff, because you can actually do 3D models before you do designs, which would be just unheard of in the past, where making 3D models is like a long process. But with SketchUp, you can just kind of do it really fast. You can see you can even just like color the different like objects. I made my wheels black, so they'll look like wheels when I go back in. But yeah, this is my shape. This is all I needed. Just a nice base so I don't have to worry about kind of creating a perspective and doing ellipses that look good every time I want to draw a quick thumbnail. And this will also let me just quickly kind of think of new perspectives and new angles to look at my drawing. So obviously, if you were gonna do like this in a different way, you can make your finished design first and then go into Google SketchUp and then actually render out your design, and then, you know, find a really beautiful angle to look at it from, and go back into Painter or Photoshop and then render it based on that model you made. But for my purposes right now, I'm going to actually kind of switch up the process a bit and go into SketchUp first, make a base like I said, and then I'm going to go back in and actually kind of create thumbnails based on these bases. So I'm using them as like little templates in Google, or they're going to be in Painter. So I'm going to use them as templates in Painter to actually create ideas. So that's kind of fun. And you can see here I'm messing around with the camera's field of view, and you can see how that really twists things and makes them into a dynamic perspective. So you can see there, just like pulling up and down, you can get all these crazy views of things. The model itself, I know it kind of looks like it's warping, but it's not. It's just our field of view, or the kind of lens on the camera that's being messed with to create really dynamic looking views on things. And once again, you can just use this to quickly have very believable kind of and interesting looks on your object or your design. So you can use these kind of these different dynamic views on your design to quickly have a more interesting maybe finished presentation or finished illustration. But anyway, talking about field of view stuff, I think it was Feng Zhu actually had a really great video that was simply purely on field of view and explaining it and what it is and how it relates to doing stuff for like video games. And it's a great video, so I'll see if I can link that somewhere here. Feng Zhu's, you know, field of view tutorial. But anyway, you can see I took a lot of snapshots of my little truck base from all different angles, and now I'm back in Painter. I can do a lot of quick designs without having to worry about my perspective, you know, being really off and throwing off my design. So it just kind of makes the design process more carefree, and I can even use the values of my little SketchUp creation because it puts some shading in, and once again, you have a lot of control in SketchUp over your shadows, over your lighting, and your textures. But I left them very simple, and you can see I can just quickly make a truck, and it will look nice and pretty. It will look actually way more believable than my little fake it designs would look. And it will just be a lot of fun. I can explore these things with little to no effort and not having to worry about, doing ellipses perfectly in space, not having to worry about my muscle control. Although, once again, it's, important to have that muscle control because even when I'm just doing this, you can see I have to do a lot of quick little lines here and there, and I want them to look straight and, pretty. So you can see there's just a couple quick trucks, and I'll probably fill out this page, and maybe there will be a part 2 to this video where I actually go back in and have a finished design idea and I can go render it, and that will be fun. So for now, I'm just going to keep working on my thumbnails and making my designs, and I hope this was an interesting video, and I strongly recommend that you guys go check out SketchUp if you haven't. It's just a lot of fun, and it can bring a lot of believability and I don't know, interesting kind of aspects to your design process. Especially, once again, especially if you're doing mechanical industrial stuff where you need to have a strong sense of perspective.